This is my 1997 Boston Whaler, and today I'm going to show you how I went from this ugly bottom coat that's fallen off to this. But first, a bit of background. Typically, one might apply a bottom coat on a boat in order to prevent buildup of barnacles, mussels, and so on. That could slow down your boat because it gets rid of this smooth surface that glides easily on the water and ends up resulting in some roughness on the boat, slowing you down. Now, in my case, the owner of this boat chose to use an ablative paint rather than a hard paint. An ablative paint protects the surface of the boat by wearing off every time you use it. So if I rub my finger on this, you can see I get a chalky substance. This is how you know if you have an ablative paint or a hard paint. An ablative paint's going to wear off with every use, eventually wearing off entirely. So it needs to be reapplied every year or 2 years, depending on the brand of the paint and how you use your boat, whether it's trailered or continually on the water. A hard coat paint instead is meant to stay on the boat and maybe needs to be reapplied only every few years, depending on the use again. So if I'm going to improve the appearance of this boat, I have a number of options. I could have applied over the old ablative paint a new coat of ablative paint, which is fine. I would have changed the color. Second option would be to remove the existing ablative paint entirely and put on the boat now a hard coat bottom coat. That's a lot of work to remove entirely all the ablative paint, only to apply a new bottom coat that eventually will also wear off, maybe after a few years. Instead, what I'm doing here is I am removing, as best I can, the old ablative paint. It didn't take all that much work. It was rather simple, and I'm going to leave it as is. I think it looks good enough for this older boat, a whole lot better than this really old, nasty ablative paint. Doesn't look perfect. I can still see a difference from the original fiberglass and gel coat to where the ablative paint used to be applied, but it looks much better. This area I've already begun the process of stripping, and then this area down here with ablative paint I've not yet begun the process of stripping. So follow me along as I show you how I removed the ablative paint on my boat. Step number one is to clean up the surface of your boat a bit. Step two, lay down some draping material to protect your surfaces from this. Step number three is to apply a paint remover to your old anti-fouling paint. I'm putting it on really liberally with a big paintbrush. I'll let it sit on the surface for a few hours. Personally, I've found with the particular anti-fouling paint that's on here, I get good results after letting this sit on for about 2 hours. With this section of boat covered really liberally with the paint remover, I'm going to let the boat now sit and let the remover do its job and loosen up the remaining ablative paint. Some users, according to the directions, may need to let this paint remover sit for 24 hours. I'm going to give it an hour and a half. 2 hours works pretty well for me, and it's been requiring about 2 applications of this paint remover before I get a really nice clean surface. After waiting a few hours, I can begin doing some scraping. It doesn't look too impressive yet, but with the application of a second and maybe a third coat of remover, I can in fact get rid of all this green bottom coat. As I apply the second coat of paint stripper, I can see that underneath the green was a layer of black anti-fouling paint. With the second application of stripper, we'll begin to remove also the black layer. I'm now removing the third application of the stripper. Still doesn't look too great yet. I may do another application of the stripper, maybe one more. And then I'll show you a trick to clean up the remainder of the stripper and paint. I'm now removing the fourth coat of paint stripper that I applied. The fourth coat may not have been absolutely necessary, but I wanted to give it a shot here. It doesn't look perfect yet because I have to come back and scrub off the rest. Next step, I'll use some soap and water and wash down the boat. And this is the magical part. The boat doesn't look too impressive yet, but I'm using a magic eraser to scrub off the remaining bottom coat paint. And it works better than anything else I found to really clean things up. It's not going to be 100%, but for this old boat, it's going to look a whole lot better than it did with that nasty deteriorating bottom coat. And this way, I don't have to continually maintain a new bottom coat. And after some magic eraser work, this is the final product. I maybe could get a little more off using maybe a buffer pad. You can see some yellow still that exists where the bottom coat used to be compared to the original. But from further away, it's not noticeable at all. Looks a whole lot better than that bottom coat paint that was falling apart. I'll continue this process on the other side of the boat and finish it up. The entire bottom coat all around this boat has been removed. It looks pretty good. I'm happy with the results. I can come back here and buff a bit more to maybe remove some of the green tint that remains a little bit. It's rather subtle though. From far away, even 8 feet, I don't see much of the bottom coat remaining. Same story on the sides and the front of this boat. It looks a whole lot better than it did, and that was my goal. I don't need perfection. And on the other side of the boat, also very nice finish. I greatly appreciate this method rather than covering over the old bottom coat with new bottom coat, because I don't have to maintain any longer any bottom coat. I pull out the boat from the water after use. Any other bottom coat I put over the old bottom coat would just have to be reapplied every once in a while, maybe every 2 years. This way, there's no more bottom coat at all to worry about. All right, on to the next project. I hope this helped you.